Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's watch.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
I love you and you're safe.
Thank you.
And I always want you to feel safe. And when
This is like Kurt all over again from Glee. It's happening again.
Processing it and trying to figure out exactly what it is that I'm feeling right now. I thought I knew my daughter, and so it makes me feel bad that I didn't see this in her.
Yeah, I was wondering if this would be part of it. Again, you would think that she would put that aside and just love her daughter. Maybe even see it as, well, maybe that's what was going on, is that she was pulling away because she wasn't sure how I was going to react. So I'll show up. I don't know. I think she also just has a tendency to shut down. Meri, I didn't show this clip, but Meri was talking about how Cody, always had an ability to be warm and connect with Mariah, had a way of talking to Mariah that Meri never had. And I am suspecting, and I have for a while, that Meri, having been raised in a family with 24 other siblings, that she was neglected and left to her own devices. And neurologically and also just attachment style-wise, you can sometimes, as an adult, have a hard time relating to other people, even a hard time empathizing. I mean, you care, but you just don't really have that open line of communication of vibe and emotion and empathy and that reactivity to other people. You know, like in a more mundane way, you will see people, like if someone has news or if someone's telling a story that involves emotion, that to a group of people, 5 people, you'll see a range of reactions. Some people will just be like on the edge of their seat and oh my God, what? And other people will just be more stone-faced. That doesn't necessarily mean something, but it can mean that they were raised differently and had to, the colder people had to turn themselves off to some extent of their own emotion or just noticing other people's emotion. And they're just neurologically just not oriented in that way. It can be retrained, but there's that. So I wonder if she is just generally more dead to emotion and to others and has always had a harder time connecting with Mariah. I mean, that's what she's saying. It kind of makes me sad because I was under the impression that at the very least, Meri did have a close connect. So, this whole thing with Mariah pulling away from Meri and her complaint about the catfishing and Meri, according to Mariah, there's a whole summer there where Meri was in love and positive about Sam, and according to Mariah, Meri was lying that it was just friendship and that it was mostly or entirely a victimization situation, It definitely was a victimization situation. I have no doubt about that. But anyway, it's really, I think, changed a lot of things from my brain. That I would have thought that Meri was a really sufficient, at least, parent to Mariah. We would see them, this is years ago, right, season-wise, where when the kids would be acting up, Meri was always the one who was looked to as the stable parent. And then there was that one scene, though, where she was like yelling at all the kids, but then she was quick during, I think, the tell-all or something to say like, oh, that was real cringy. But she can be level-headed maybe because she isn't very reactive, but she isn't very warm. I thought it was both. I thought it was level-headed and warm, but I'm wondering now if it's just level-headed and not so warm. I don't know. And also the way that she is narrativizing what she went through. She's been victimized, so it's hard. Maybe she'll come around. But what I would hope that I think would be a viable narrative, one that would be self-aware, and I think for Mariah's benefit, if Meri would have a narrative that had all the things that she's been saying, but also had this element of, well, and I have to admit that in the beginning, for a certain amount of time before the intimidation started happening with the catfish, I was actually, I think, heading down a road of cheating. It certainly didn't start out that way. It was just a friend, but over time, it really did blossom into that. Now, after the intimidation started to happen and the abuse started to happen, the threats, I would play along with the romantic talk, even though I didn't feel it, because I was fawning, I was terrified. So, there's that. But the fact that I just keep mulling over what Mariah was saying, that Meri for that whole summer was fighting with Mariah to get Mariah to like this guy. If Meri was, as she is contending, that she was distancing herself from everyone because she was trying to protect them, which I can imagine being true, then you wouldn't in private with your daughter try to convince your daughter, no, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. So, it just, I think it's all of the things. I don't think anything Meri has said is a lie. I just think, like I said, trauma can do interesting things. It can erase or repaint the entire situation. The other thing I'll say is that when we first learned about, if I'm looking at my notes here, so normally I take notes in my Google Doc, but because the power was out, we didn't have internet, I had to write down all my notes during this time in the dark. I had a flashlight and I was watching the show. And Meri tells everyone about the catfishing late in season 9, right? When they're, so what we saw was episode 13, season 9, they're wrapping up the Alaska trip, and we see her at dinner with the other adults, and she's saying, I've been struggling, and she's really laboriously saying very little to, the sister wives and Cody. And she at one point says, don't be surprised if one day you wake up and I'm gone. It's like, whoa. Interspersed with that is a one-on-one interview with Meri, her talking about the catfishing. It's easy to mix those two situations up and think that she told them, or that's where she was coming from in the moment. But there's a possibility that in that moment when she was telling them, don't be surprised if one day I wake up and I'll be gone, she was in love with Sam and was actually thinking about leaving, because according to Mariah, that was definitely being communicated, right? So, or at least Mariah's basically saying that. So there's a possibility that in that moment, now it's possible that she was communicating, I'll be gone one day because I'm trying to, in her mind, I need to protect these people from this situation. Now all that is absolutely possible. But it's also possible that she was saying, I'll be gone. And that was her way of breaking. I've seen it. It wouldn't be the first time that I've observed this when someone wants to break up and has such low assertiveness that that's how they would break up. And they would just want to ghost because they don't want to face it, And so, and then eventually, it comes out. Cheryl reaches out to Meri. Meri figures it out and breaks up with Sam and Lindsay. And then they interviewed her months later and inserted those scenes in that final episode as a way of saving her from herself because if you just saw the scene where she's, don't be surprised if one day you wake up and I'm gone, and you didn't know about the catfishing, you would say, what? And the other thing is, thinking back to the way everyone reacted, everyone was like, huh?
I didn't see the struggle that she was going through all these years. And it just makes me feel like a really bad mom that I just feel like I was just...
And I'll stop yammering, but it's interesting that she is feeling like a bad mom, which is unfortunate that she should feel that way. I don't think this has any reflection on her necessarily. It might not anyway. I don't know what Mariah would say. You just had, if anything, Meri should be celebrating that her daughter felt safe enough to come out. Largely, Mariah's personality and safety in the family has to do with Meri. So she should be saying, wow, I did something right, that I raised a kid who is way more assertive than I am. I don't know. But it's interesting that when we're suffering, then it will interfere. Ironically, the way it could come across to Mariah is that Meri doesn't care. But Meri might care so much in such a way. Actually, I was actually talking about this with a client, so I'll just talk about it generally speaking, that we can, so think about it for yourself, because I think like it can be confusing that a lot of times in couples, they will complain that their partner doesn't care about their feelings. It might even be the most frequent reason why people break up. In reality, when you ask people, there's, it's sex and money, but it's not really what's happening underneath everything. So, and when people feel like, no, my partner definitely cares about my feelings, that can almost solve any problem in a marriage. So when you feel like they don't care, or you're being accused of not caring, you yourself might say, no, I care a lot. I notice a lot of your emotions. This is one style of preoccupation and trauma reactivity from your past, but of being so caring about your partner's feelings that it freaks you out, right? If your partner is upset or angry or distant or sad, someone can be so enmeshed and so undifferentiated that it's hard for them to cope with the emotions because they care so much. And I put it in quotes because they care, but it's not compassion caring, it's fear-based care, right? If my neighbor is prone to driving a big truck at 100 miles an hour down my street, I care about it, but I don't have compassion. I'm paying attention because I'm terrified he's going to run my family over. But it's different to care in a compassionate way, to have empathy and to want to know or help or be attuned to someone else. So sometimes what people will think is that I care too much, or of course I care about your feelings. I notice your feelings before you even know what your feelings are. And yeah, that should be addressed, and that's not your fault. It's trauma reactivity, but that's not caring. And what that can do is actually paradoxically cause you to not actually exhibit care, because you're just reacting out of fear at the very least. But if you're taking care of yourself, then you would actually mitigate the fear by telling yourself it's not your problem and you're differentiating. But when you do that, you're distancing yourself from the other person. And the optimal situation is where you're not made to feel afraid because you've recovered and been through enough therapy such that you can actually care. When your partner or when someone in your life, your kid, has a feeling, then you can attune and be with them and exhibit, caring and that you're there and that they matter in your life, that kind of thing. So she's exhibiting that right now, where on the surface she looked, when Mariah was coming out, that she's like colder than all of them. Christine said nothing in the edit. I don't even know if we saw Christine hug Mariah, but we'll find out more, I'm guessing, about that. But for Meri, she is, it's possible that Christine just doesn't really see herself as like a parent, because there's a lot of youthfulness to Christine, so she might think of herself as not really responsible. I don't know. Anyway, so for Meri, she's not exhibiting, but deep down, she's beating herself up. She's like, and so this internal fear and terror is actually resulting in the very thing that she's worried about, which is that she's a bad mom. Isn't that interesting, right? In that moment, she's so worried that she's a bad mom that she becomes a bad mom.
I kind of always expected that. I always wanted to have a son. I always just kind of thought, well, since I never had a son, I'll be able to kind of adopt Mariah's husband into, kind of being a son. And I looked forward to seeing who that was going to be, That's not going to happen.
So what? That's okay. That's interesting. So that means that you can't be cool with your daughter being gay? I think what's happening is Meri believes or has a felt sense that's been told to her or given to her that being gay is wrong. And she either can't admit it to herself that she believes that or can't say it to the camera or something. So she's saying all these other things, and because this is the coded language of bigotry is, well, I always thought that you'd get married. She's talking. I always thought that you get married and have kids, and I've seen the other girls get married and have kids and get married to a guy, and I always wanted that. Okay, you can want a lot of things. There's a lot of things that, and I guess the hope one is that you'd go back in time and we could tell Meri, open your mind up to all the possibilities of who your daughter is and stop writing a script before it's written because you don't know how that thing's going to be written. So don't get attached to the gender of anything or even the possibility that your kid is going to have kids or not. Your kid might not want to have kids. Who knows? Your kid might not want to get married. Just love your kid and be open to the stories that will develop. Don't get locked in. I get it. It's and this is not uncommon. You'll have people that so I had this vision, and now I'm never going to get that. How do I feel about that? Is kind of it's a loss of a kind of a vision, especially in traditional cultures. Okay, and move forward. And there's another vision. You can say, well, one vision you lose one, but you gain another one. I don't know.
She still will get married. She'll still.
Now, I don't blame Meri really, because Meri is a typical religious person in my country and extremely typical fundamentalist religion. And, those individuals don't typically sign up for bigotry because they want to. They are just told it. And Mariah herself thought that being gay was wrong. So it's involuntary to the people. You could very much argue that past a certain point, as an adult, you have the choice to look into it yourself. But it's interesting because I haven't been commenting on this, but Cody said that this is all because of Robin, because Robin had gay friends or has a gay friend or something. And Cody, for the first time, had to really wrestle with that and came out the other side of, well, I don't know what. So there's another version of parents' reaction to gay children or religious people and their reaction to gay family members or queer or trans family members, because that will on the surface look like they're cool with it, but they're not actually cool with it. Or there's a spectrum of acceptance. And there are some, I've seen it, where there are Christians and Mormons who will say, I absolutely love my gay daughter. I accept her, I love her, and I'll fight to protect her. And Cody's kind of saying this language, and it sounds like, okay, then they're good. but deep down, they know that it's wrong. It's like you'll hear them say, I will love you even though you are falling outside of God's grace or you're going to go to hell, because there's certain versions of Christianity and I guess fundamentalist Mormons that are the sort where they're like, well, everyone strays, right? Everyone has to go on their own journey, but eventually, and Cody even said this, he's like, it's my job to love and it's God's job to judge. Now, I don't know if he means, and I don't know what God's going to say. Maybe God's cool with it. But it kind of sounds like he's saying that he knows that God isn't, because, fundamentalist religious people are not known for their nuanced takes on the text, right? And in the Bible, there are several passages that are clear. Now, many will argue that it's not actually anti-gay that is the context for the authors who would originally put pen to paper and write the Bible originally, or those who wrote afterwards, 200 years later. But what they're actually referring to is the contrast with the Romans, who were oppressive and were invaders. And the Roman culture was known for having a kind of a gay relationship, but it's also argued that their version of gay was actually exploitative of young men and boys. Anyway, so it's not actually a rejection of being gay. It's a rejection of the Romans, and not just that, but also their excesses, the Roman excesses and their invasion and their occupation and their lack of morality seeming, from the invaded perspective. So, but there's also, it's a very difficult topic to kind of figure out what was going on in their minds. Anyway, so you'll hear that some people will say, I love my gay daughter, but in their head, and maybe they'll say this in a certain company, that it's their mission to try to reform their daughter, but they're not going to be heavy-handed about it, like you'll hear similar things when fundamentalist religious people will have a child that will say that they're an atheist, right? They'll say, I love my child. I will never, I will be there for them, till the end of the earth. But secretly I'm like, I kind of need that. And I love this kid. I don't want them to go to hell. I want them to be with me in the afterlife. And so I'm going to, in a soft way, go on a mission, or I'll pray every night that they change. And, if they're loving on the outside, but on the inside they are worried, is that really acceptance? I don't know. What do you think? This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So one of my favorite songs of all time is by Elvis Costello, and the song is called Every Day I Write the Book. Now, it's a love song, but you can also think about it as a song about our existence. Every day we write the book of our lives. Along these lines, now that it's a new year, you can think about how you want to write your book in 2025. And of course, therapy is a great place that you can explore this sort of thing. In therapy, we can really focus on ourselves and our story. And a great place to find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy both affordable and convenient. They have over 30,000 therapists with a wide range of specialties, and it's easy to switch therapists at any time. So write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Have kids, except for now you have 2 wombs and 2 options to have kids instead of just 1. So you could actually have more grandbabies than you expect.
Well, that escalated quickly. What? Let's rewind that.
It's going to be, and that's not going to happen.
She still will get married. She'll still have kids, except for now you have 2 wombs and 2 options to have.
Stop. You don't know if she's going to get married. Stop it. You also don't know if she's going to have kids. You also you don't even know about wombs, right? So knock it off. Just, I appreciate what Robin is doing. She's really, really trying to convince Meri. So I think Robin's awareness and maybe progressiveness goes a certain distance, but if she were, I think, what I would define as like more progressive, then Robin wouldn't say this. She would say, kids might be in the future, marriage might be in the future. You don't have to give up on that dream necessarily, but there's also a possibility that won't happen. And if I were to talk to Meri, I would just listen. And I've been there with clients, and I've been there with family members, and I would let them grieve, and because they are, they're grieving, and they weren't born with this notion. People aren't born with homophobic notions. It's quite the opposite. So, it's not her fault, and I would just listen and counter occasionally. I wouldn't be trying to convince Meri of anything. Meri, I think she's just processing a lot. Meri seems really bottled up. She's so bottled up, and I think I didn't see that before. I think I saw evidence of it, kind of, but throughout this whole thing, she just seems so bottled up. And if she weren't as bottled up, I think she actually would be more warm about this whole thing. I think it's possible that she just is so bottled up that she just doesn't know what to do, and it has less to do with homophobia and just more to do with her feeling like a failure. And it could be 10 times worse after being victimized. People will experience that. They will regress, and they will have shame, and they will believe that there's something deeply wrong with them. And so I'm guessing that's also a part. So if Mariah had come out prior to catfishing, or if the catfishing never happened, there's also a possibility that Meri would have the exact same, if not more warm, loving reaction as Robin, because Meri could just be in a state,
Kids instead of just one. So you could actually have more grandbabies than you expect.
And then I remind myself that Christine Pereira told me about the AUB religious group, that what they believe is that when they're having children, they are actually extracting souls from the pre-life or something and bringing them into the world, and all those souls will eventually come into the world. But in order to assure a greater number of souls being saved by the right religion, you need to have, as a woman, as many children as possible, because if you only have one or two when you could have had 10, then those are 8 souls that are probably going to be lost to the heathens. That's not the words they use, but I think that's essentially what they're being taught. And so the womb talk might be along those lines. I don't know.
Like, they have centers for this. They go and they buy some baby making juice, and they make a baby together. I'm trying to get Meri to understand that all the things that she thought Mariah would have in a husband-wife relationship, she will have in a wife-wife relationship. I'm trying to get Meri to understand that.
Yeah, and I'll applaud that. And it's definitely an opportunity for Meri to stretch. No one else is doing. I wonder what Janelle would say, because she seemed pretty positive. But I think Janelle is just. I think she's. Well, I don't know Janelle. She's similar. I think she also stuffs her feelings. But I'm just happy that Rob is doing this. But like I said, I think there's a further, more progressive, more open way of looking at this, aside from, she will certainly get married and have kids.
And I don't know, they could sit there and be sister wives together without the guy. That's kind of how I see it. I mean, I don't know. That's what she.
Wait, what did she say? At first I thought, there's being a joke, but I think it might be kind of pertinent.
And I don't know, they could sit there and be sister wives together without the guy.
They could be sister wives to Gareth. I think I need to turn on the.
And I don't know, they could sit there and be sister wives together without the guy.
Without the guy, yeah. And those are quite the subtitles. Look how giant, and they're capitals. wow, I'm going to turn those off. They're quite intrusive. Now, of course, the joke is, well, how many sister wives are gay and would enter into a polygamous relationship because of their religion? They can't be gay, but at least they can be close to other sister wives. I don't know.
She'll see it too. And I think it's good that you're talking to us and not her, because I think it's hard for her to digest your thoughts and your feelings, because she just needs acceptance. She just needs
I accept her. I do.
know, but she needs to not. I think she needs to try not to. I think if you can try to avoid showing her these feelings and thoughts, that would be beneficial, and try to figure out how to adjust your.
Yeah, it's not bad advice, and I haven't been showing all that Robin is doing to mediate here. There was a moment where they were going to sit down and talk, and Cody was like, I don't want to sit here because we always have like negative talks in this living room, so let's talk up here. And then Mary's like, I don't feel comfortable. And then Mary's like, but it's fine. Okay, fine. I'll just deal with it. And Rob's like, no, let's figure something. We need you to be comfortable. Let's move somewhere else. And Mary's like, never mind. Don't worry about it. We'll sit here. And Rob's like, no, it's kind of a big deal. Like, let's try to figure something where everyone's comfortable, not just one or the other. So Robin's been working real hard and seems to be hurting cats in some ways. But yeah, so I agree with what Robin is saying. I mean, it's complicated, but to protect Mariah, what Mariah needs, Mariah shouldn't be faced with these rather selfish concerns, right? I mean, this is Mariah's life. It's who she is. And okay, Meri, so you had a hope that she would be heterosexual, get married to a guy because you always wanted a son. So, and that's preventing you from, that you're really hung up on that. Like, come on. Okay, fine. You have these things, but the central theme is that you have a daughter who is telling you who she really is. So get over yourself. And, Robin's not saying that directly, but, I think she's doing her best to try to facilitate this so that Mariah can get her needs met.
You're thinking to all of this. For my advice to Meri right now is process this. Yes, definitely process this. Process this away from Mariah. And when you're ready and you feel like you're safe, then go talk to her when she's ready too.
I just feel like I ruined the moment for her.
Yeah, I'm really actually worried about Meri. Is she depressed? Has she been depressed? Because she just cannot stand up. Everything is, I'm bad. Everything is, it's all my fault. I'm worthless, which could be 75% the victim syndrome, being victimized and harmed and abused and brainwashed and the shame and all, and there doesn't seem to be any resolution about that. Meri doesn't seem to be particularly open to therapy, honestly. Cody seems the most interested in therapy, and Meri, even in therapy, is in terms of the edit, is fairly clammed up. In fact, I didn't show this. Well, I did a bit, when Meri and Cheryl went to that other therapist. I think they're in Atlanta, and Meri was saying, I'm not going to this therapist to get therapy. I'm going there to get some ideas to why a catfisher would catfish. And the professional, they edited it, but mentioned personality disorders, but then basically said, it's just unknown why someone. But the therapist was emphasizing, what really matters is how you're doing and how you feel and how this might be affecting you. And we didn't see the whole session, but Meri and Cheryl left, and Meri was really happy and was like, wow, that was the best session. And Meri even goes back to Nancy, their current therapist, and was just talking about how great that the other therapist was, I mean, Nancy, to her credit, didn't react to that in the edit anyway. Nancy seems like she's on the up and up, and But as a therapist, I felt a little bad. It's just like, it's fine to be happy about another therapist. Any therapist hearing that should be okay with that, should even celebrate it. But the way that it was, Meri was talking about it, it almost seemed like she was saying she was so much better than you were. Oh my God, it was amazing. Anyway, so I really worry about Meri. And this is what happens. If you look at the tagline, if you look at just the surface information, you have this woman who cheated and then got catfished and is now a bigot about her daughter being gay. But more fundamentally, what we might be looking at is just her just drowning in shame and self-hatred. And it just looks like all those, or it manifests in what from the outside looks like all those things.
All four of you were there to show her more support than I could. Not that I don't support her, I just...
It's fair, Meri. We were all shocked.
It makes it worse, I think, because we're in such a funky place. I hate that.
I know that's hard.
It can be really frustrating to have a friend or to talk with a client in this mode because, it's where that joke comes where you just want to grab the client and go, let it go or get over it, right? Because I think what Meri is saying is, if only I were a better parent, then I would have been a better parent. And it's like, there's a circular reasoning there, right? Just go be a better parent. Just be loving and accept and shower your daughter with love. And then you'll like yourself again. But instead it's, I'm a horrible parent and I fucked it up and I'm gonna fuck it up. Why try? And I'll just shut down, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, Mariah feels like she doesn't care. Now, bigotry could be a big part of this, but I'm not hearing that. I mean, I'm hearing a bit of it, but anyway, it can be very frustrating because with depressed people, and the more vibe I'm getting, it is starting to look like depression. With depression, you are not necessarily crying all the time, but you can be. The main feature is that you just don't have any motivation. You just can't do anything. And you just feel like, what's the point? And you get no pleasure from anything. And you also feel horrible about yourself. You just feel like, I'm such a piece of crap. I've always been a piece of crap. Everything I do is crap. Why try anything? Because I'll hate it and no one will appreciate it and I'm worthless and it'll always be this way. So I'll just be an inert lump and do nothing. And it's not their fault, of course. Depression is something that happens to someone. So I don't know, it kind of looks like that to me. And you could imagine after going through what she went through, one could be depressed, right? It could feel like, for the first time in my life, I opened myself up and was feeling my feelings and being assertive and chasing what I wanted to do for the first time in my life. And then look what happened.
And something so personal. If you guys were in a better relationship, she probably would have...
I want to talk to her about it. I want her to share with me her thoughts and feelings about it and her excitement about it. And
she's really happy and excited.
I want to know that. And I don't want to know it through you.
Okay, that's a good sign. That's actually a really good sign that it's not bigotry. She's saying that's what she wants. She wants Mariah to... So maybe this whole thing is just highlighting their distance, But I think Mariah needs Meri, to admit what partially happened, in addition to being victimized and manipulated and gaslit and catfished, that she also, for a time, was voluntarily moving away from the family and fully reveling in this Sam guy, at least that's the way Mariah sees it. I think there's good evidence that Mariah is basing it on. She was there. And Meri was sharing it with her. So but then I guess if this is going to move forward with the two of them, I think Mariah would once again have to be in the parentified role where she just puts that aside so that Meri can, yeah. Ugh. All right, well, let's adjourn there for now. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.